Well, as you know, Canada has been addressing trade instability on two fronts this week, one in Washington and the other overseas. So Prime Minister Mark Carney visited several European countries, and among the topics of discussion was future trade. Joining us to talk about where those opportunities are for Canada is Julian Karaguesian, who's a former special advisor in the International Trade and Finance branch at the Department of Finance. He's also a visiting lecturer at McGill University's Department of Economics. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you think are the most promising areas of trade expansion with Europe that were highlighted on this trip?
I mean, potentially we have the opportunity to expand trade right across the board. We sell each other everything from airplanes to nuclear reactors to foodstuffs. I think the biggest area, just to answer your question, would be energy, and in particular natural gas and oil. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One country in particular in the EU, the biggest economy by far, Germany, has very little energy of its own. It was heavily reliant on Russian natural gas and oil, and a lot of that has been cut off with the war. And so there's really immense potential to expand our energy sales, natural gas, oil, by ship to Germany and to Europe more generally. But it's not going to happen overnight. And the second area is critical minerals.
So before I ask you about critical minerals, which our province here, Manitoba, is acutely interested in and
Yeah.
positioned to be interested in, I want to ask you about servicing Germany and other parts of Europe. Can Canada do that with our current output, or are we talking about, is this reliant on the pipeline projects that Mark Carney's talking about?
It's going to be reliant on the pipeline projects that could be built into the Energy East partnership, but we are going to need, and we're going to have to move quickly. We are going to need infrastructure, not only an extension of our pipeline network, but also an extension of our road and rail networks, pretty much the entire transportation sector. And if we include pipelines in transportation, because it's moving energy, then and also the points of exit and entry for our country's marine, and those are going to be critical. We have to build up. Prime Minister Carney's been talking about building out our economy in addition to these nation building projects. They're one and the same thing. We need new port facilities, and we need much more investment in existing port and other transportation infrastructure, and that does need to happen. We can do marginal increases in our energy and other exports with existing infrastructure, but for a large scale expansion, we're going to need a big range of these capital projects in our ports, in our rail, in our airports, in our road, and
Uh,
also in natural gas storage.
and Churchill obviously is on the table here for our port in
Yeah.
Manitoba, and minerals is obviously one of the things that we're talking about there. When you look at supplying Europe, just to stay with the mineral component here, why would they want our export of minerals now? Is it a new market for them, or to expand it, or where are they getting that serviced right now, or
Well,
from right now, I guess?
China produces about 80% of the world's critical minerals. They could actually do more. And then other countries, Australia, Brazil, Russia. But there's a huge that the outlook is what's interesting here, and the outlook for the demand for critical minerals when we think of the rise of artificial intelligence, and the digitalization of the world, and the fact that everybody has an iPhone or a Samsung, and the coming the green transition that we're in with electric vehicles. Critical minerals are used in all of these critical products, these key products. And so it's not so much a question of competing with China, is more feeding a growing global market. And really, it's up to us. We can make the investments in these critical minerals, and we need the infrastructure to go along with it to be able to move them, because very weight intensive, these critical minerals. And we also need the processing facilities. And we could do that right there in Manitoba. We could have processing facilities where we not only mine these critical minerals, but we process them and ship them, and we get more value that stays in the family, that stays in Manitoba, stays in Canada.
I want to ask you about taking advantage of some of this because Canada, as you know, has we have many free trade agreements all around the world, covering 52 countries. There's billions of consumers. Many of them are right now not being utilized to a great degree. What do you think should be done and could be done to encourage more Canadian businesses to access those markets?
Well, I mean, one thing that could be done is like it's great to have a free trade agreement with Korea. We have a lot. We have some trade with Korea. We have a few $1 billion worth. We could do a lot more. But one of the problems is we need a lot of our trade corridors, if we can put it that way, run north south. Now we do have points of entry and exit on the Pacific coast, on the Atlantic coast, and in your province in Manitoba with Churchill Falls, but we need to build out our marine infrastructure. It's really critical, and I think the Prime Minister has recognized this. And we need the transportation infrastructure not only to be modernized but extended. We need to build out these networks, road, rail, air, to be able to go to our coasts, to be able to support more exports. And really, one of the critical markets with whom we don't have a free trade agreement with is China, which is, they produce one third of the world's manufacturing output, and they could take, I mean, we could really see a doubling or a tripling in a decade of trade with China, particularly from our Western provinces. And I'll just add this point. I think our Western provinces need a greater say in our foreign policy because they're suffering right now with Chinese tariffs on canola because we have tariffs on electric vehicles. And so the potential for trade with Asia and also with Europe, I think is immense.
Thank you very much for outlining some of the highlights and opportunities moving forward. We appreciate having you on CBC with us.
Thank you for having me.
That is live with us via Zoom. Julian Karaguesian, a visiting lecturer at McGill's University's Department of Economics, talking more about what was coming out of the Prime Minister's meeting in Europe.